Welcome to the Unlocking Senior Resources podcast by Leave the Key. I'm Larry Wagner, and I've spent 30 years working with seniors where I was a certified senior advisor and the last 15 years in the home buying industry as a certified senior transition specialist, where I specialize in dealing with seniors going through a transition in their lives. This podcast is for seniors, those with seniors they love, and people who work in the senior community. In each episode, we bring on a guest who works to improve the lives of seniors. This podcast is your key to unlocking senior resources. Welcome. Today we're here with Alyssa Ramirez from Silver Lining Homecare. Welcome, Alyssa.
Hi there.
How are you doing today?
I'm great.
And thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And so you work for Silver Lining Homecare. What is your job role there?
I am their business development manager on Long Island.
Oh, that's interesting. So how did you get involved in that with the company and get to this place now?
Right. So I actually always wanted to be in healthcare. I originally planned on going to medical school. So I had done all the courses, did all the shadowing hours, and took the MCAT. But at the time, there was COVID happening in the world and kind of changed everyone's life, including my own. So I ended up at a medical laboratory doing the PCR testing. At the time, unfortunately, the biggest client we had were nursing homes.
Right.
Because unfortunately, nationwide, they had the most deaths and just the most amount of people infected with COVID. So I began speaking with the administrators there, the providers of geriatric populations, the patients themselves and families. So I really got a feel, and I really enjoyed doing what I was doing and just speaking with families and guiding them in whatever way possible. So that's how I ended up working with this population, and in home care, I can continue to do that.
Interesting. First of all, you went through all the trouble of staffing for the ACATs and didn't use them.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed my time. I was an administrator at a medical lab, and I saw that I could make a difference in different ways and still have an impact in the healthcare system. But I did get my master's instead in healthcare administration.
Okay, I hate taking tests. I thought of taking
Yeah.
So now go
The MCAT was very long.
Oh my gosh. So at least I'm sitting across from someone smarter than I am. So with that said, so your role is not the typical role that what I have sort of on the podcast that we interview.
Mm-hmm.
How client facing are you in your role?
Client facing, I would say I see clients a lot. However, I'm more speaking with the families more and providers when they refer someone that needs home care, social workers, that they're being discharged from a nursing home or an assisted living, a hospital. And so I will speak with clients and directly, or I will speak with families and other healthcare providers.
Okay. So you've worked for other companies before getting to Silver Lining?
Yeah, so prior to this role, I was at another home care agency called Always Compassionate. I was their director of clinical. So I was helping with any private duty nursing, PT, OT, and speech therapy. And so when I came to Silver Lining, I brought those aspects into this agency. So we're not just your typical aide. We also provide those clinical services as well when needed.
Is that something they provided before you got there?
We were licensed to do so, but we weren't really doing it. We also weren't in Long Island before I got here. We were primarily in the 5 boroughs, and we expanded to Nassau when I started my position about a year ago now. So I really brought over the business into Long Island, and we've just expanded it, and as well as our clinical services.
I was going to say, Lord knows there's enough seniors on Long Island. But you've tapped a huge market for sure.
Yes.
But you said you told me previously that you also work with non-seniors, that your youngest client is 6 months old.
Correct. So we are pediatric to geriatric populations. So we work with individuals if they have physical or intellectual disabilities. We actually work with a lot of the schools on Long Island as well. So we're the ones providing them the staff. But yes, a lot of our younger aged individuals, they're getting nursing, whether it is long private duty nursing hours, 24/7. We do 168 hours a week with some of our population. But again, we go all the way through geriatrics. So our oldest individual is actually 103. So really big.
With 100+ years swinging your ace. That's the first for me, 102.5-year-old spread in your client base. All right. That's wow. All right. So there are people, so you're a home care provider, but you do things that, based on our discussion, things differently, or no, I'll say more things than often the home care providers that I've spoken to in the past.
Right.
And I hired home care providers for my own mother. For my own mother. I don't think that came out clearly. And so what is that you're doing that's different or more elaborate or more detailed, whatever the word would be, than others?
Right. So Silver Lining Homecare, we offer a variety of services. We're not just your typical, we only offer aides. So we do our personal care assistance, a companion care. We have a home health aide. We have nursing, whether it's short-term services, say wound care, Foley changes, medication management. Then we have our long-term, like I said before, where you might need 24-hour nursing care in the home. We do PT, OT, and even speech therapy.
Oh, that's way.
So we offer a really big variety of services. So yeah.
And that's all done at the home.
All done at the home or in an assisted living or facility that they're located. So we're not just, you hear home care and you might think, oh, just in the house. But no, we also work in facilities and communities as well.
So where they're living.
Wherever their home is considered.
There you go. Because we were talking also that my granddaughter gets care. And some of her care she goes out for, and a little bit of it, almost none now, they come into the house for. But in your case, it's all, as you said, coming to their place of residence, which is way more convenient because my poor daughter's shuttling around all day long to therapies. So getting them all to come to her will be much better.
Right. And you said your mom was also in need of care, right? And
my mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law.
Yeah, my wife gives care to my granddaughter, but my mother-in-law, she's just coming out of a hospital, and she is in rehab. She's in hospital for 16 days. She's in her late 80s.
Right.
6 days in the hospital, very tough on us, so in the late 80s. And so she's going through rehab. She's doing well. She's walking and so on, but she's not what she was yet. And I could see her needing, we were debating about what kind of care to give her. We didn't think she was going to come out as well as she is and rebounding as well as she's doing. And the question is, what do we do with her now?
Right.
They're in an independent living facility currently. And do we move her to a nursing home at this point? No. At this point, that won't be necessary. But this conversation is going back 2 weeks ago. A lot's changed in the last 2 weeks. And she's going to need care. She's going to need more physical therapy. We're not even sure she's going to need an aide because we don't want her getting up and going to the bathroom.
Right.
So we were not sure what to do. She has long-term care insurance, which is a big, big help. And we weren't sure if how she even qualifies to get such aid. And that's something you do. I'm sure you deal with a lot of long-term care insurance.
So my question is, did she have a fall going into the hospital?
Did. Yes. She fell 3 times in 2 weeks. She didn't get injured from the falls. So my wife took her to North Shore. She wanted a neurological evaluation because something was wrong. My wife was with her when she fell. She's walking. Her feet just stopped, but her walker kept going. But it's like her brain stopped communicating with her feet. And my mother had gone through something like that. And so they went for a whole neurological workup and so on. And they think it ended up being viral meningitis, but they don't even know. 16 days later, they don't even know what's wrong with her, but they finally released her to what do you say?
A rehab.
A rehab. Thank you. And so we don't know what her future is, but we don't think she should be left just with my father-in-law who's in his 90s.
Right.
So he can't walk her to the bathroom and so on and so forth. And so what do we do from there? Do we get 24-hour care, which is, she has good insurance, but not 24-hour care worth of insurance.
Right.
Or are we paying for independent living, which is expensive?
Yep.
Right. So what options do we have? You can't get people just for, she needs help getting dressed. My wife's busy taking care of our granddaughter.
Mhm.
So she's shuttling back and forth between the two places, and there's only so much she can do for so long. I'm sure this is not an atypical situation.
Right. This is very common for us. My question is, I'm assuming she has Medicare, correct?
Yes.
So during her hospital stay and during her rehab, she is probably using Medicare. And then there's two home care agencies, the types. There's a certified home care agency, and there's known as a CHA. And then there's Alyssa, which is a licensed home care.
CHA stands for what? A
Certified home
agency, CHA?
Certified home health agency.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
And then Alyssa is a licensed home services agency.
Okay.
So on a CHA side, CHA is for short-term services, and they take Medicare. So in a situation where there might be a fall, you might be receiving home care services through a CHA for PT.
Right.
So that's when Medicare will cover the services.
So she's in a facility now.
That is
Covered that way, or is that CHA's only at home?
CHA's at home.
Right.
In the facility at rehab, she's probably using Medicare. She's only allowed a allotted amount of time through Medicare that they'll cover it. After that, even if she goes home, say with an aide or with a PT, again, they can only allot like 100-something days. So after those 100 days, if you have an aide in the home through a CHA agency, they're not covering it anymore, and they're saying goodbye. So you're kind of left stranded again. So if you think that your loved one needs long-term care, where it's not going to be, she just needs a month or two with someone helping her around the house, you think it's going to be a long-term need, you should go to Alyssa, which is that licensed home care agency. Those are for long-term services, and it's through Medicaid most of the time. Medicare is not covered under Alyssa. In those cases, you can there's a variety of different ways to pay. You can go privately. But again, nowadays, there's so many agencies out there, and I'm sure when the time arises, you don't think about it, and so you're not really doing research. The first thing you're doing is looking up home care near me, and you're kind of calling to that list and just saying, what are my options here? How much is it? And you're not getting much information. They either say we can do it or we can't, because you're calling, and some of those agencies on that list might be that short-term service, and they're like, or they might be the long-term service, and you're asking for Medicare. They're not giving the information you need. So you can pay privately, like I said. Most of the time nowadays on Long Island especially, you're going to hear ranges from like $30 to all the way to like 40 something. My agency specifically, we're on the lower end. We're at $30 an hour if you're going to pay privately. But we also help with the different types of programs out there. Right. So there's Medicaid. There's a bunch of managed long-term care, like you mentioned. There's the CDPAP program, and there's TBI waivers, the NHTD waivers. Those are a variety of programs that you could utilize. Specifically, my agency, we do Medicaid. We actually help with the process of applying for free. Right. So that's a major one.
That's expensive.
It's very expensive. Very complicated.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, most of the times people go through either a Medicaid planner or a lawyer, which we might need if there's other things going around. But we do help with that process for getting Medicaid as long as you're going through with needing the services. So in your case, for your mother, if you think that she might need a long-term service around the house, especially because your father is also getting to that age and they want to stay home. I mean, everyone wants to be in their house. They're comfortable with their settings. They feel safe there. So we actually help with that. So we would just need information from you guys. We help move around money. We'll give advice and say, it might look like you might not get qualified for Medicaid because on Long Island especially, you think everyone makes like a decent living. But we help with that process. We've gotten millionaires on Medicaid just by moving around, putting money in trust, telling people like maybe like put the name of your house in a different name.
Right.
So we work with them. Okay. And then after you get approved for Medicaid, you will get an assessment. So that determines how many hours they're qualified for. Medicaid might give your mom, say, like 4 hours a day.
Right. That's the problem.
That's the problem. So you know that she needs more hours, but she might be not qualified for them. Also, a lot of agencies might have a minimum number of hours.
It seems like it's 4 hours.
So a lot of them, it is 4 hours. So you're calling these agencies, you're saying, I need 4 hours a day, but an agency might say, oh, we have a minimum of 6 hours.
Right.
We can't help you here.
And the 4 hours I prefer, if I'm only getting 4, which is getting dressed and which is going to bed. So
Right.
2 and 2, but you can't do that.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get those split shifts that someone's willing to go in 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. Even though it makes more sense for you and your mom's schedule, it's just not easy on staffing standpoint.
Well, I understand too. You travel
Right.
to work for 2 hours. It's not practical.
Right.
Yeah.
So we either say there's live-in options also. So if you really need someone, you can do like a 12-hour shift going back and forth and that. But what you could do in the situation where there's a minimum amount of hours in a home care agency, you can privately pay on the outside. We don't really recommend that. Our agency doesn't have any time minimum, so if you need, we can offer and help when we can. But in other situations, we'll help you choose an MLTC. So those are the managed long-term care. So in those types of settings, there's different ones, like say Anthem, there's Senior Whole Health. That's like just a couple. But they do their own assessments. So Medicaid might say your mother can get 4 hours a day, but through the MLTC, they might grant her 6 hours. I just actually had a case recently where one of our clients, she was looking for a certain amount of hours. And unfortunately, the original assessment through their MLTC granted her, I think, 21 hours a week. And that wasn't enough for her.
Right.
So we said, hold on a minute. Let's get you another assessment with a different MLTC. So a lot of people think you get one assessment from an MLTC and that's it. Like you're not going to be granted any more hours. You can't go to anyone else. But that's not the case. You can get another assessment through another MLTC. And this individual was actually granted almost 10 hours more per week. Yeah. So it does make a difference to try to weigh your options. And I think people don't know that they can do that. So
No, that either.
yeah, so it's really important to understand.
So they're assessing her need, the client's need differently? Is that why they're able to justify more hours?
Yeah, I mean, you also have to think that these individuals, they're at an age where they've been independent their whole lives, they've been autonomous, and they don't really want to tell people. They're assessing them based on one face-to-face or on online assessments. You can't say everything you want to say in that time, or maybe they're too prideful to admit to it. We recommend family being there to talking to the family because the family can give a little bit more information. But we've had clients sit in these meetings and say, oh, they shower, they can cook for themselves. But then the family might be like, didn't you just tell me you fell in the shower 2 days ago?
Right.
Like, I needed to call you to tell you to cook. Like, it wasn't like you were cooking on your own. So they leave out this important information and they might not want to admit to that important information. So we always say, like, you might need an advocate present just to help remind them that they really do need this care. And for an MLTC, they're just seeing what the needs are. And a lot of MLTCs go on activities of daily living.
Right.
So at greater numbers of care, say this individual is highly independent. They cook for themselves, like I said. They shower. But they have a tendency to run away. Right. I can give you an example of my grandmother. She has dementia. So she's very independent. She can cook. She can clean. She does everything by herself. But unfortunately, we've gotten calls where she's on the street and she doesn't know where she is.
Right. Yeah.
So to an MLTC coming in, they're saying she has all of her activities of daily living. She doesn't need care. She can cook. She can cook for herself. She can do everything on her own. But we know we need someone watching her because she's going to run away. And we can't control that. So there's actually a program called the NHTD waiver. So if an MLTC isn't giving you a large amount of hours, but you know that this individual may need bigger hours and more care, you can try to go through this waiver, the Nursing Home Diversion Waiver. And that'll allow individuals to get 24-hour care. It's especially important for, one, individuals that want to stay out of a nursing home and get care in the house, and two, individuals that, say, have a dementia or an Alzheimer's, where they're functional for the most sense, but they have those tendencies where they might need 24-hour care and an MLTC will continue to deny him.
So a few things you mentioned there. One is activities of daily living.
So that's, say, toileting, feeding, things that you would do on a typical, getting dressed, things like that, showering, bathing.
I remember there were 5 when I started in the financial planning business, and they came to 6. I never remember what the 6th one was towards the end of my career.
Maybe grooming.
Maybe. So and I remember if you couldn't do 2 out of 5 or 6, you would qualify for long-term care insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And the other was if you had cognitive impairment.
Right.
So it's not your grandmother's case. She could do all 5, but she has cognitive impairment.
Correct.
And therefore she would qualify for certain things. Now, the programs you have talked about are all Medicaid-based, not Medicare-based.
Correct.
Correct comment. So somebody who has assets, who doesn't qualify for Medicaid, we used to call it like artificially impoverishing them through putting money in irrevocable trusts.
Correct.
Things of that nature. But you still have a 5-year look-back period. Is that still the case?
That is for nursing homes. So
okay.
It's not for home care. It's a 30-day look-back for home care.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so people get that confused. And
yeah, me too.
So it's different. But again, the Medicaid process as a whole, you're collecting documents, so it may take a little longer and you're still moving around money if necessary. So.
Right. That's interesting. So I know in my family's case, they put money into a irrevocable trust years ago, just in case. And so they're sort of prepared for that.
Right.
My mind doesn't go to Medicaid because their level of income. And income is something that's part of the process, and you can't put that aside.
Right.
So that can disqualify you alone. Do you know, I don't know if you know what the Medicaid income limit is at this point. I don't know if it's part of what you do or not.
I remember it being $25,000, but I don't know if that's changed over the years.
This is, I think, annually, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So I'm not sure what it is right now.
Right. But it's a Long Island low number.
Right.
Right.
And most of the time, it's not going to be the case.
Is that a state level question, do you know? Or is that a federal? Well, you don't.
That I'm unsure of.
Yeah. If it's 25,000, Arkansas is very different than 25,000 in Great Neck.
Of course.
So, I'll say Long Island in general. So I was really curious about that. I should know that from my past, and quite frankly, I don't. And I apologize. I should know it too. So the two of us, even though you passed the MCATs,
so you know what it is? We have a person on our team, our internal team, that does all the Medicaid applications, and a person dedicated for the NHTD. So I wouldn't be the person. They are the people that really know everything, all the details surrounding it.
That's why I asked my question that way. I didn't know if it was in your job.
No, I get it. Of course.
You can't know everything Medicaid. You can't know the federal government makes everything complicated.
Right, and it changes all the time.
And And Medicaid is no different. But what upsets me, and I said this in a previous podcast, is seems like the older you get, the more complicated the government rules are. And the older you get, the less you're capable of handling complications.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be inverse.
Right.
They should make life complicated as long as they have to when you're younger. When you're 30, make life complicated. And when you're 80, make it simple. Make the rules very simple so an 80-year-old can understand them.
Right.
And they go the opposite direction. So I guess as the older you get, maybe the more you rely on the government, like for Medicaid and Medicare. But I don't know. We'll see. Mm-hmm. We'll see if they can simplify it anytime in the distant future even.
Let's hope for my sake.
Your sake. Well, there'll be no Medicare or Social Security. So I thank you, by the way, for paying for Social Security.
No problem.
I'm not collecting yet, but I will be. I tell people I think Social Security will be means tested for your generation. Mm-hmm. I think it will exist, but not as we know it today. I think it'll become another form of welfare. I don't believe the government can afford to sustain Medicare.
There's different ways they can, but it's if they change drastically now, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think by 2030, I think the date was
2030 or 2035 or
something in the 30s.
All my life. I mean, I'm 66 years old. I mean, for decades, it's going to go broke in a few decades, in 10 years and 20 years. So to you, this is new information. To me, it's not. I've been hearing this most of my life.
Right.
But they have to do a radical change. And the problem is they know senior citizens vote and they'll do nothing to negatively impact senior citizens. No politician will subscribe to that, which means we just keep kicking the can down the road. And so it'll be, instead of 2035, it'll be 2036 and 26 and a half. And at some point it's going to blow up and they're going to have to make a radical change. And you guys are going to be the
unfortunate ones. Yes.
My opinion is that it will be means tested, which means that everything you paid in with a promise of getting it back, there'll be no more promise. If you're poor, you'll get it back. If you're not poor, you're not going to get it back. And that's not what Social Security is about. That's what Medicaid's about. So, but that's independent of our discussion here. That's my little soapbox because I'm getting angry because I know it's my kid.
You're getting angry. I'm getting
angry on behalf of my kid.
Okay.
So you're their generation.
Yeah.
So I'm angry for you too.
Thank you.
So, but it's just so wrong. It's just so wrong. But I spend too many hours talking about this off mic. I must spend all my time talking about it on mic. So, but with that said, I've spoken to and dealt with a number of home health care agencies and whatnot, and they're so simplistic. They'll supply an aide to come and take care of your family member. It doesn't seem more complicated than that, but you're much deeper than that. So you said you deal with Medicaid. Do you deal with non-Medicaid care as well?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not just Medicaid. Well, most people are at Medicaid. You cover that whole side and all those word salad, initial salads you espoused and you clarify for people listening. But all people need to glean from all of that is that they need to reach out to somebody like your organization to see how they can qualify for those programs. They don't have to remember what those programs were, just the fact that they exist and that they should reach out to somebody like you.
Correct. So we really help guide our clients to let them know what their best options are, because a lot of agencies don't have the variety of options that we can give. And we also have a bunch of resources and we work with the community. So even if you have questions outside of the scope of home care, we can give you guidance. So.
Oh, that's huge. That's huge.
Hi, I'm Larry. And I'm Ben. We're the father and son team of Leave the Key Home Buyers, and we want to buy your house.
We specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning out of their homes, and we understand what you were going through.
So if you're considering selling your home and would like an alternative to the traditional overwhelming process, reach out and see how we can help.
Do you have an outdated home?
No need to update anything.
Have a home that needs repairs?
Don't bother with repairs.
Don't want to take everything with you?
Leave whatever you want behind.
Dreading the headaches that come with agents?
Sell your home without paying a commission.
Dreading prying neighbors attending open houses and passing judgment on your home?
No need for public showings.
When you sell to us, you'll have all the certainty of closing on your timeline, not someone else's, and there's absolutely no pressure.
Visit leavethekey.com or call us today for a no-obligation offer at 631-388-7771 if you want to sell your home today.
Now the other side, now on the non-Medicaid side, like in our family, we have long-term care insurance because I used to sell it, so I bought it for myself, my family. How does that play into this? Once you have long-term care insurance, is all of your need doesn't go away. It's just how we fund it is different.
Right.
We still need the same care.
Correct.
So we still reach out to people like you to
Yep,
arrange
you
that
can
care.
still reach out to us and we can help you navigate, and the long-term care insurance will cover it.
Right. Well,
So instead of paying out of pocket, it might be covered under your insurance.
it or part of it.
Yeah.
either way. Now, can you qualify for? You can still qualify for Medicaid even with long-term care insurance if your insurance doesn't have enough benefit to cover the care. Or is that considered income? Or that's beyond you?
That's beyond me.
Okay, fair enough.
Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that.
You can't know
but-
all the answers to all these questions.
Right. So that's why I have an amazing internal team. They do it all. Like if anyone has those questions, I direct it to our individuals, and they really know their stuff, which is the great part of this, that I know I trust my team to navigate in these people's lives, like.
This, the other line, it takes a village. It
Yes.
takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to raise a senior as well. Nobody can know everything, as I said.
Right.
It's like just too complicated. So I don't expect an answer to all these questions, but you're answering the ones you know, and I appreciate the fact that you're not flubbing through the ones you don't know.
Right.
That's happened too many times. So So now we have long-term care insurance. We call you. You could arrange if we need a skilled care person, unskilled care person, and the number of hours. Does the long-term care insurance company decide how many hours you're entitled to?
Yes. So they're the ones we'll put in for authorization in those types of cases. And they'll either say you're approved for this amount of hours, or they'll say we're denying you.
Right.
And that's where a lot of people will go to a private pay option.
Right. I'm sure the insurance company's not in the business of paying out money. It's in the business of collecting premiums. So sometimes you need an advocate, I understand, to qualify.
Right. And we'll always encourage, like, if someone reaches out and says we got approved for this amount of hours, we'll always go back to the insurance and fight for more, or we'll give them different options and say you should try another long-term care if that's the case.
Right. Well, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So because Medicaid covered long-term care insurance. So now how different is it if you're a private pay without insurance? The process is the same, except your gatekeeper's not the insurance company. Is there a gatekeeper at that point if it's a private pay? It's you get whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's all to pony up.
Yes, private pay is typically easier to get set up. There's just a contract between you and either the clients or the family, whoever is the person paying for the service. And you get to pick your hours. So if you need someone from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., it's up to you on what you're willing to pay for and what is really needed on the individual's end.
So if I have a family member qualifies for Medicaid and they get X number of hours a day and we want more as a family. So let's say the son of the person needing care, I can chip in and hire that person, a person for the uncovered time that Medicaid's not willing to pay for.
Correct. So say you get 8 hours, you want your family member to get 8 hours a day, and Medicaid only covers 4 hours. You can supplement that with private pay option for the second half of the 4 hours.
Right. Now, I'm able to keep the same person throughout that time?
Correct.
And we're just paying you, and then you're distributing the money to the person, the caretaker.
Correct.
So they don't know who's paying. It doesn't matter to them. They're getting paid their money.
Right. So, I mean, some people don't really love to go through an agency for a private pay option because it probably is cheaper to go elsewhere.
Right. You'll make money. You have to make money in your business.
Not necessarily that. The important part about using an agency is, say you private pay someone that you found in the community. If there's a call out, what are you doing? Like, you have to take off of work now. You have to figure out who's caring for your mother, your father, whatever the case is. With an agency, you're guaranteed to have someone show up. If there's a call out, we need to know 24 hours ahead of time, and we have to find a replacement for them.
My mother needed care for 3 years, and one day they were unable to get care for her. 1 day in 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good.
So just imagine if you were paying someone in the community to do that and they called out.
Right.
That's it. Nobody. Now you have no one.
And they're going to call out much more often because numerous times the person called out.
Right.
And
things happen.
Things happen. Every time it was covered.
Right.
And except one in 3 years. That's 1,000 days. So I can't argue with that kind of track record. But you're right. If I'm relying on my neighbor gets sick. She's out for 2 weeks. Then right. I can't, take 2 weeks off. My wife can take 2 weeks off of work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very valid point about using an agency, not going private pay direct.
Right.
The issue is, I know people say, but if I go with a private pay, all the money's going to a person. I'm paying you $30, the person's getting $20. I could just pay that person $22. They're happy, and I save $8 an hour times a whole day. But it comes along with a risk.
There's a risk, and you get a guarantee. If you go through an agency, you get a guarantee on essentially getting care, and we have to make sure they're trained, they're up to date with all their physicals. Our agency actually pays for our staff's physicals just to make sure they're doing it. We can fingerprint them, get them background checked. We do all these extra steps to guarantee they're getting the best care. So that's the important part of going through an agency.
I was going to say a little of that, but you said way more than I would have said, so I'm going to stop speaking. Yes, I wouldn't have I thought about the background check.
Yeah.
But going for physicals, would never have occurred to me. And you're right, fingerprinting. You want to know who's coming in your house, take care of your mother, your father.
Right, of course.
That's huge. That's huge. You may save a few bucks if you private pay, but it comes along with the price.
Yep,
It can
always.
and risk.
Mhm.
So the difference is just not worth it. And we went through an agency for my mother. We were lucky enough to have long-term care insurance, but that's expensive in itself. Are you seeing less and less long-term care insurance?
We are. Over time, we are seeing less and less.
Yeah, I bought my policy 21 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
In the last 21 years, it's almost disappeared.
It's changing a lot.
It's changed into combination policies and so on, with getting life insurance and long-term care built in one policy. It's just gotten so expensive, people just couldn't afford it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept was great.
Concept is great.
But the underwriting was god-awful, and it's up raising the premiums on people like me. My premiums double what it was when I bought it. And my clients still call me. I'm not in the business anymore. I got a call literally this week, last week, the Friday. Larry, what do I do? My premium just went up by 25%. I haven't spoke to the man in 4 years, and I'm out of the business almost 7 years.
Right.
And it's just why he's calling me, and I feel terrible, but it is what it is.
Mm.
So, but it was a great concept. It's just not well implemented is the problem. So hopefully the new policies will start becoming more popular and it'll give people choice.
Right.
And that's what's important. People have too much money to qualify for Medicare, or Medicaid, and not enough money to pay for care. And they're in this in-between state. And that's a really dangerous place to be in. And the problem is those people are unable to afford long-term care insurance.
Right.
So wealthy people who don't need long-term care insurance can afford it.
Yep.
It's the poor people that can't afford it, don't need it. It's the people in the middle that need it and can't afford it. So instead, they're left exposed, and then your job is to clean up the mess that's left behind, and that's by qualifying them for Medicaid if they don't have too much income. Mm-hmm. If they have too much income, there's nothing you can do at that point.
We'll try to move it around. We really do. We work on moving into trust, like you said.
Those assets, though, the income is non-malleable. Is that a fair comment or no?
That I don't know.
Okay. I think
I get
yes.
Anything really Medicaid related, I have a dedicated team member, and
Fair enough. This is, I said, awesomely complicated. You can't know everything. And your job is do your job, not to do the whole process.
Right.
So with that said, but I believe it's not. Income is income. You can't shelter income. But I mean, almost in some people's case, it pays to tell the company, stop giving my pension, I don't want it anymore, which I don't think anyone could do. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like more cost effective to give your income than have to pay for your own care because it's so expensive. The very interesting. So what other information? What have I not asked you? Because this is a complicated topic. I see myself not asking a question that you may think I should have asked. I won't take it personally.
No, it's okay. So I didn't talk about the CDPAP program yet. So I can go a little bit into that. So CDPAP is the consumer-directed program. So you will, if you're over the age of 18, qualify for Medicaid. You can pick your own caregiver. But you're the one that's hiring and training them.
Okay.
So that's where you see loved ones or friends and family taking care of someone.
This is for people over 18?
Over 18.
Okay.
I want to make sure it's 18 and not 21. I think it's 18.
Okay.
Well, we'll say 18. So that's how you qualify for it. And unfortunately, the program is going through some changes right now. There's a bunch of lawsuits against it. So as the program has gone on, there are different fiscal intermediaries. So that's an agency. Say there's hundreds of them providing the CDPAP program. So if you want your loved one to get care from you, you would go through an agency, and they're the ones that are providing the training and getting the money to you. So that's how it works. Fortunately, the budget for the program has been increasing. So in 2019, I think the budget was about $2.5 billion in just the CDPAP spending. Recently, in 2003, it's almost $9 billion. So the price that it's gone up has surpassed the price in home care, just the typical home care. So they're trying to make budget cuts and decrease this spending. So what they're doing is taking those hundreds and hundreds of fiscal intermediaries and putting in them to one statewide one. So right now, it's moving the process over from all these agencies to this one agency. Our staff, our patients are starting to get letters from their insurance saying it's time to make the transition. That's a hard thing to do, from going to hundreds and hundreds of agencies into one. The call volume is probably crazy. Your patient experience is probably going to be dwindled because you probably can't reach anyone.
Right.
And you've been with this agency for maybe years at this point, and you're happy with their service, and that's why you like using them. So a lot of the times agencies now, what they're doing is they are getting schools for the PAs, and they're transferring their PA. They're training them to become a personal care assistant. So that way, depending on the relationship with the patients, they can be a personal care assistant and continue to get paid.
Right.
So even in terms of the government making changes into CDPAP, now you can't be a spouse of someone. So if you were taking care of your wife, now you can't do that anymore. A lot of the household individuals are changing in that way. So, and budget cuts in terms of how much they're able to pay for you. So it's gone down.
So I'm going to ask the question. We're recording this 3 weeks into the Trump presidency, his term. Are you aware of what they're doing on budget cuts? Is that what's impacting you, or those budget cuts are more than the 3 weeks old?
This has been a little longer than 3 weeks old. It's New York State based. So other states, it's not really being in effect. There's other states that are still happily doing what they were doing prior to this. So we were up in Albany a couple of weeks ago, like protesting against this, because there's families that really, really need this program. Think about in a hard to service area with an aide, like say out in the Hamptons where there's not that many individuals, or even in Glen Cove, their public transportation is not easy over there. There's no bus systems and train stations close to where the town is. So those are hard to staff areas where we would recommend the CDPAP program so they can upstate. Yeah, think about that. Like, where
think about that being down here. It's
Yeah.
home of the state, but it's we buy houses for a living. We buy and sell houses, fix them up. And we get calls upstate and we look. They're on 12 acres. The nearest labor is a mile away. I mean, so the town has, no, I'll call it no people in it. Where are you getting the aid from?
Right. So that's when, in cases where we'd recommend that program. And it's unfortunate that there are changes, but everything's going into an effect officially on March 28th. But we are hoping on April 1st, there might be changes to the budget. So hopefully they might stop in this process of going into one statewide one, because again, that's a lot of work to do in a month and a half, to change all these thousands and thousands of patients and changing it into one agency.
Right.
So that's going to be an interesting time. And we're doing our best on our ends to help keep our patients safe and comfortable with their caregivers, and making sure that we can train them to become a personal care assistant.
Right. There's a lot to know.
Yeah.
There's a lot to know. So, and again, these are not seniors anymore you're talking about. These could be any age people over 18. And I'm sure we won't even go into the complications for people under 18, because they do deal with very young kids. Yeah. But since this is a senior podcast, we'll leave that for someone else to discuss for you. But it just goes to show the breadth and the scope of what your agency does. It's huge. This has probably been the most complicated podcast I've done, because we're dealing with the government, number one.
Right.
But there's so many options out there, which is good that there are options. It's just a matter of much as somebody like you who knows the right one for the person needs care. So question for you, so if there was one takeaway from this podcast that you'd like people to glean from this, what would that be?
One key takeaway I would say is senior care isn't one size fits all. There are many resources, many support systems out there to help maintain independence, dignity, and quality of life for these seniors. Whether it's home care, whether it's community programs, selling a house, financial assistance. The key is knowing what your options are and knowing how to navigate them. So Silver Lining Homecare, we do a really great job of guiding our patient population and making sure they're getting the best fit option for their needs. And no one should have to make these decisions alone. And with the right information, these seniors can live comfortably, safely in the comfort of whatever they call home. And so I really appreciate you having me on here and talking about this. And this is a great podcast to showing the resources available for the senior community.
That's what it's all about.
Right.
Unlocking senior resources.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're a resource. So question, if people want to get hold of you, how would they reach out to you?
Yes. So they can contact me directly. I have my email at ar1@slcareny.com or contact me. Yes. ar1@slcareny.com. And my phone number is 516-426-9783.
Very good. It was a pleasure having you today. Thank you for the tremendous education. I learned quite a lot, and I know more than most in dealing with seniors and being a financial advisor, but I learned a lot today. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Unlocking Senior Resources podcast by Leave the Key. If you've enjoyed this episode or found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast. We specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning out of their homes, and we understand what you are going through. So if you are considering selling your home and would like an alternative to the traditional overwhelming process, reach out to see how we can help. When working with us, you can sell your home in its current condition, there is no need to remove unwanted items, and you control when the house is sold, along with so many other advantages. Visit leavethekey.com or call us at 631-388-7771 to learn more about our senior home buying process.